Thanks for coming, Eric. Welcome to our renewable energy demonstration site here at Mugga Mugga. Thanks for coming to talk to Uniflow Power today about what you do and who you are. In fact, maybe you could start us off with just telling us who you are and what you do.
Well, appreciate the invitation and very interested to see what you're doing here. My name's Eric Hutchinson, as you mentioned. I'm the Administrator of Norfolk Island. Have been for just over 6 years. My time's coming to an end in that role. It's a role that's a statutory appointment by the Commonwealth on an Australian external territory that Norfolk Island is. Like so many small communities, energy generation, particularly a community located in the middle of the Pacific, energy generation presents its certain challenges.
Oh, great! Thanks for coming to talk to us about that. So you're the Administrator of Norfolk Island. What kind of things do you see yourself doing on your day-to-day role?
Well, look, I mean, day-to-day, there's certain sort of statutory delegations I have from the Minister, which is very much a formal part of the role that I do. But similarly, it's a role that working closely with the Minister of the day, I can present, I guess, on behalf of the community, a perspective that sometimes will be different to that which her department might bring to the table.
You're giving a voice to the community.
I'd like to think so. I take that part of my job very seriously. I always have done, and as I say, with a close working relationship with the Minister of the day, I think I've been there long enough now to be able to get sometimes very frank and open and direct advice from the community, which I can then share.
Excellent.
I can share with the Minister.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to obviously ask you about where you see the Cobber playing a role in a while, but what I want to just ask you first of is, you were telling me before we started rolling about some of the general figures about how much energy is used on the island, how much of that is solar versus how much is diesel. Could you just give me just a few kind of baseline figures for what kind of the energy consumption is?
Very quickly. So the overwhelming majority of electricity is generated by diesel generators. It's supplemented by solar. A moratorium that had been in place for a number of years has only just been lifted, and that's as a result of investment that the Commonwealth made with the regional council in terms of battery storage, which allowed them to lift that moratorium. They had the challenges there in that small grid that was a central grid using diesel as it happened to be the primary generator. They had the same challenges that we have across Australia.
Sure, i.e. that in the centre of the day, plenty of energy is being produced by solar and it's got nowhere to go.
Well, this is right, and whereas at 6, 7 o'clock at night when everybody's home, cooking their dinner, it's a far cry from 1 o'clock in the afternoon when nobody's home, and power's coming back into the grid, and so balancing that to some degree, that the storage has offset that, but it presented real challenges, and in fact, for a long time there, they were burning off power in the middle of the day, which is less than ideal. So with the introduction of with meters that can manage and measure power coming in and out, the council are certainly encouraging people to reinvest now in rooftop solar, reinvest in storage as they are doing themselves, to create a grid that's got a less reliance on diesel.
But it sounds like you still have a massive need for on-demand power, such as the Cobber, and that's what diesel is currently filling on the island.
That's right. Now look, I don't pretend to be an electrical engineer, but the people that seem to know these things that think that we haven't got any aluminium smelters on the island, so we're not drawing huge amounts of on-demand power that would be required to do such a thing. But we draw about 1.5 megawatts a day on the island. The hospital's probably the biggest drawer. As I say, at certain times of the day it's more than others. We've got about a bit over 2 megawatts of storage now in terms of investments that the council's made. But right.
Again, a few cloudy days, and
it doesn't take much to use that. So you do need, if you can get to say 50% solar. Might be a little bit more depending on circumstances. You're still going to need an alternative generation source. At the moment, that's fueled by diesel, which is brought in. It's brought in in bulk. It costs money. It's not cheap at the moment, and it has its downsides as well. But
do you have any idea how much diesel is being brought in?
Well, about 1.5 million litres annually, wow. as I understand it.
Yeah.
You can do the numbers on that yourself. But
huge amount.
So anything you can do to reduce that, to have an alternative, and costed across as well, not only reducing the importation, but given that a lot of material and waste needs to be removed from the island and taken back to the mainland, often ending up in landfill, that comes at a cost to the community as well. So if you cost this across, as I say, not only displacing diesel as a generation source, but dealing with some of the waste sources and waste streams that currently can't be on the island, and potentially are a fuel source. And then thirdly, there's a real environmental challenge there with some of the woody weeds on the island. Right.
So you have an existing native biomass that needs to be dealt with.
Well, if it was native, it wouldn't be so bad. But these are exotic species. Right. You've got everything from Hawaiian holly to African olive to some of the exotic guavas that are really overtaking both private and some of the national park as well, and it's a real challenge to.
Okay, so there's an existing weed there that actually must be dealt with.
Well, look, I think this is increasingly important. There's certainly the national park are dealing with this all the time. Private landowners as well, trying to have a greater proportion of native plants on the island, many of which are very endangered and threatened species just because of the fact that they're endemic to a small island in the middle of the Pacific. So anything that can be done to support them and deal with some of the woody weeds makes the island more productive, and again is potentially a fuel source for some.
Well, yeah, it sounds like what that could do is not only do you reduce your incoming diesel needs, but you're also reducing your need to get rid of things off the island. Is that right?
Look, to me, it's this whole concept of circularity. When you're talking about island economies, and it's not really until you live on an island that you really do appreciate that fully. I mean, it's kind of just a word until you start really thinking about it.
Buzzword.
That's right, and it is in a very practical way something that applies day to day on an island. And so it makes sense from an environmental perspective. It makes sense, I think, from a social perspective, and it absolutely. And this is it's a critical part of it. It makes sense from an economic perspective if you cost it across those three areas that I mentioned.
Yeah, awesome. Perhaps our audience will already know, and that the Cobber produces both electricity and useful heat. So the cottage here is heated by the Cobber. Is there a need for heating on the island in the winter months?
Look, that's absolutely true. I mean, some places more than others. I don't say it's Tasmania or Canberra.
Sure.
But nevertheless, winter time. But the other thing is as well. There's also local laws that preclude the installation of air conditioners. Mm-hmm. So, and why is that? Is because of the limited capacity of generation. And so you start to think a little bit more about this. Then there's no logical reasons why in the summertime you couldn't have air conditions operating on power that's being generated locally from a renewable and sustainable source. Certainly a more preferable source than currently what's being used in terms of burning diesel.
Yeah. Eric, it's been great to have you here. Thanks for coming to talk to us today.
Absolute pleasure. I wish you every success with what you're doing here. As I say, I think the applications. There's the potential there far and wide, not just on a place like Norfolk Island, but I wish you well. It's very interesting what you're doing.
Great. Thanks very much.